कालकालाय विद्महे कालातीताय धीमहि तन्नो कालभैरव प्रचोदयात्। ओम हिंगुळे परमहिंगुळे अमृतरूपिणी तनुशक्ति मनशिवे श्रीहिंगुळाय नमः। ओम कामाख्यवरदे देवी नीलपर्वतवासिनी त्वं देवी जगतं मात्रं योनिमुद्रे नमोस्तुते। Namaskaram. Welcome to yet another video of our Ishtartha Guru Bhairava, where we will try to know about him a one step closer as whatever we know him a minute before. In today's video, we are going to talk more about unknown facts about Bhairava, where there are very limited information which is available in the social media today, but still I would like to tell this one particular aspect or the view which we normally see from our Ishta is going to change our view on a landscape of our view towards or a love towards Guru Bhairava. It's a flame of refused to the end. It is about Bhairava in a Liṅga-Svarūpa. You may be wondering like actually how Bhairava in a Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective. Let me just take you back, like long before even the time existed, even there was a like somewhat like learn to count the time itself. Then when even the direction had not even found their names, there existed a Pratama Purusha, Adi Purusha, Shiva himself, Adi Nātha, and his infinity stillness, the stillness of normally Anandhi, Anantha, Akarana. These are the three stages where he was there in the stillness of the state. From that stillness arose a first pulse. That pulse is none other than Spanda, and a throb that wanted to know itself, and that throb was none other than Bhairava, and not born from the Shiva. Not born from the Shiva, but Shiva own awakened to the dynamic phases. See, as we know from a Puranic perspective, Bhairava has come from the third eye of the Shiva, but Guna of the Shiva, the Adinatha, is himself the Bhairava. He himself in the Skanda Purāṇa as well as in Liṅga-Purāṇa very clearly describes that you are me. You are not separate from me. You have been part of me, so you have been come as a Svarūpa. But here what we need to understand is Shiva is none other than Bhairava himself. That throb, the throb of Spanda, of Anandhi, Anantha or Akarana. These three stages where actually the stillness was there, Shiva had attained it, and that particular stillness is Bhairava. People see him actually as Bhai, means as a furious god. No, here we need to understand that the stillness starts from there where Spanda starts, and that Spanda is none other than Bhairava himself. Normally at that given point of time, even Devatas unable to comprehend the fiercest or yet compassion between force or what we call it as sought to give from which is form or formless. They did not have that kind of connection at all, because at that given point of time did not existed, direction did not existed, and thus they begin a greatest paradox of that particular moment was like everyone had got that this particular mind that how can the infinity be measured? This was one of the primarily questions which came into the Devata's mind. How can the infinity of this cosmos can be measured? How can a chitta, what we call it as chitta, like a pure consciousness, to contain the murti, one particular consciousness getting into the murti Svarūpa, form Svarūpa, how this can be analyzed, assessed? At that given point of time, I believe you would be knowing about this particular story. The same story of our Guru Bhairava. The one age Brahma and Vishnu begin to debate. The creators begin debating about like who among them are the supreme at that given point of time. And you know that actually later on what happened, their voice actually were pride, ego was there in their voices, and reached to the about to the Shiva. The Shiva, as I told you, he is in a Spanda Swarupa at that moment. He is in a Anandhi, Ananta, Akarana, because the stillness of the Shiva can only be felt when there is a Spanda which is getting activated. That first pulse of Spanda was being heard by him when the creators only started debating themselves among themselves that who is the supreme. Because as I told you, these two questions actually got evolved, like how can the infinity can be measured, and how the chitta, the super purest consciousness, can be contained into the Murti Swarupa. These two questions actually were very burning at that given point of time. And Brahma and Vishnu became very arrogant, egoistic, thinking that they are supreme. And the voice was heard to the adobe of the Shiva, the Kailasa. And to dissolve this ego, I believe you would be knowing about this. We have spoken about this multiple times. Shiva himself was emitted from the what we call it as like from his Agnya Chakra, a blinding column of fire actually. Neither a beginning nor the ending could be seen. I believe you would be knowing about this. There was Adhara Stamba which was being erected, and that what we call it as that particular from his third eye, Agnya Chakra, there was a particular light which got emitted, and that light got converted as Adhara Stamba. And that particular Stamba, there was not just a pillar as what we have heard or learned from the Puranic aspect. It was actually a Kalagni. In Agni Swarupa, he is a Kalagni because he bounds, he governs the time, the blaze of awareness of the Bhairava himself, the Linga of the fire. Kalagni is none other than Bhairava in Liṅga-Svarūpa, the Linga of the fire. In Tiruvannamalai, in the south of India, normally you would be knowing about this particular stamba of the particular light. When the creators were actually debating, the stamba was erected, and that is none other than Linga of the fire. Brahma, I believe you would be knowing about the next episode of the story. Like Brahma took the form of a swan and fly upwards, and Vishnu took the form of boar and he went drive towards it downwards. And when they tried to explore it, what is the start and the ending point of it, but neither found the origin. I believe you would be knowing it, nor to end of that particular flame, the particular Jyoti, whatever we call it as Linga of the fire, the Adhara Stamba. They were not able to know what is the start or the end of that Adhara Stamba. Later on story, whatever is there, the whatever the Bhairava, we will try to know the different aspect of it here is they returned humbly, telling that actually, like, like Brahma came and started telling that actually he has able to found the start of the end of the particular Jyoti. And maybe actually we'll pause there. Here, the form of the center of the infinity of that particular fire, the Bhairava fire, the Adhara Stamba fire, whatever we call it as Kalagni. Here, the fire was deeply laughed and echoed. His first reaction was he laughed. He laughed as Aham Bhairavam, ungraspable, which cannot be grasped is Bhairava consciousness. And that Bhairava consciousness, the particular voice from Adhara Stamba came out was Aham Bhairavam, the ungraspable emitted of the light, knowledge, awareness, jnana, Kalagni was able to convey this message. It was revealed that the Linga was none other than Bhairava, the eternal access. You know that actually after this Shiva came from the third eye. Try to understand, he is a Kalagni from that particular Agni-Svarūpa, the eternal axis around which the certain, what we call it as spines and dissolved, the Bhairava Liṅga-Svarūpa was being erected. What we call it as sthāṇu. The sthāṇu is like somewhat like unmovable. We call it as a stillness. Okay, the contain of both terror and tenderness. This particular stage, what we call it as like sthāṇu, and the sthāṇu is none other than that particular Svarūpa is ready to capture, consume everything, but still it is in a tenderness, consumable state, yet to be actually to. And that particular state, what we call it as sthāṇu, was active. That's where Shiva took a first form of Liṅga-Svarūpa, and that Liṅga-Svarūpa was none other than Bhairava himself. Why Bhairava became the Linga? You may be asking, like, this has never been written, or again, as always been said, if you go with the logic, you will be able to lose many of the things which comes in between your knowledge and your awareness. Try to grasp him by the utmost surrender and love. You will be able to decode each layer of his connection, how exactly is being felt. Whatever is being said, we may be actually only trying to hear that, or which we are trying to echo that. But try to understand, this may be much more broader than whatever we have been heard about it. This particular story, whatever I'm trying to share, is actually my Guru was able to share this particular view, how exactly Bhairava is in a Liṅga-Svarūpa. And according to the Nātha Sampradaya also, and especially when it comes to the Bhairava served like chopping off the Brahma's fifth head for the arrogance. After the episode of actually he coming out from the third eye, he was being named as Bhairava. But the energy, that particular energy, Kalagni, is none other than Spanda, that is none other than Bhairava himself. And that the pure himself, Bhairava wandered, like you know that actually he took a Kapala of the, he actually was being tagged as Brahma Hatya, because Brahma being a creator of it, he chopped off his fifth head. He was being having that particular Kapali, the skull bearing. He actually roamed around all the places until he reached to the Mahasmashana. And that Mahasmashana, and I'm not going to reiterate the same story, whatever is been known. Here what we need to understanding, once he was trying to go around the Kashi Kshetra, the 14 lokas, and when he was able to arrive at the particular space at the Kashi Mahasmashana, the greatest cremation ground ever we have thought or heard or known about it. Here he sat in the profound meditation before he was able to get the Kapala. Once it was fall down in a Kapala Kunda, there was actually a transformation for him, and that particular transformation is he was in that state, like, let my movement chases slow down, let my warmth turn to the witnessing, let the wandering become the axis of this entire world, because entire roaming of his from all the 14 lokas came into the halt, and that particular moment is none other than, we call it as Spanda. Thus the moving of the Bhairava, the Kala Bhairava, was actually turned into the Liṅga-Bhairava, because he becomes subtle. He became a conscious awareness where he was able to know, feel and know entire cosmos into him, and that still he was able to know his primary essence, his primary Svarūpa of the Liṅga-Svarūpa. He was able to know because of that Brahma Hatya. After roaming around all the way, when he sat down, understood that actually he is none other than moving the chase. He is actually warming among the witnessing that particular surrenderness and silence, or what we call it as the shunyata, that particular stage, and that still one, what we call it as sthāṇu Bhairava. Sthāṇu Bhairava is somewhat like unmovable Bhairava, and even it is also connected to Alak Niranjan also. Alak, which is unmovable. Niranjan is none other than pure consciousness. Here what we need to understand is every dot is actually connecting when you see it in a view of Bhairava consciousness. You need to actually experience it. You need to actually feel his presence. You need to actually know him in such a way that how exactly the dots were connected. It is not that actually whatever the storyline was there, it was not only that. There may be much more profound information. It cannot be explained. It can be only experienced. And that particular stage, what Bhairava was able to feel, and that was sthāṇu Bhairava. Sthāṇu Bhairava is unmovable state of the Bhairava, where the fire was dissolved. He became the fire of awareness, and that awareness is none other than like what we call it as self-established Liṅga-Svarūpa at that given point of time. Bhairava taking the Swarupa of the Linga, Swayambhu Linga, whatever we call it as Swayambhu Linga, he taking and settling down his entire knowledge, his entire awareness, and becoming his self-establishing himself into the Liṅga-Svarūpa. You know that like once it comes to the Liṅga-Svarūpa, it is like a what we call it as unmovable state. It is like a constant subtle or a settled state of consciousness, and neither installed nor work stripped. It is Swayambhu, and that this is the first ritual ever we can see that Bhairava in the Liṅga-Svarūpa, when he was able to know himself, aware himself, know his primary essence as Kalagni. He was able to settle all those energies. After the 14 long years of 14 all lokas, he was able to witness it. And the awakened by the consciousness itself. The consciousness is Shiva consciousness, or what we call it as Bhairava consciousness. Here we cannot term whether who was first or who was last. Here we need to understand he is part of it. He is part of none other than himself. We cannot tag him or bind him by the name or form. And it was said that in the Skanda Purāṇa also, in a Kashi Khanda, like Yatra Bhairava, Tatra Liṅga-Purāṇe, Tatre Shive Swayam. That is none other than Bhairava abates in the Linga form. There Shiva himself is Shiva manifested into that particular Swarupa. You maybe heard about the story like Devi actually and Shiva was there, and he was got the curse, and then he was being asked that actually he need to be in the form of the Liṅga-Svarūpa to be prayed on. That's one part of it. But what we need to understand is he was not, that was the first instance. It was actually this particular moment when he was in the Bhairava Liṅga-Svarūpa, he showed himself. Yatra Bhairava Stitite Liṅga-Purāṇe Tattvam Shivam Swayam. Where Bhairava abates in the Linga form, there Shiva himself, he is a self-manifested. See, mystically significance, you may be thinking about it, whether it is true or false. Let me just tell you, experience Bhairava. Do not read about him, do not know about him, do not try to grab about him, do not think him as one particular Swarupa, Guru Tattva. He is above than anything and everything. And that can only be felt once you are ready to actually consume that into you. And that consumption can only happen when this particular instrument is ready to consume it. Liṅga-Svarūpa. Liṅga-Svarūpa. You need to become as a Liṅga-Svarūpa. Once you become a Liṅga-Svarūpa, you will be able to consume that. You will be able to know that particular state of stillness. And that Liṅga-Svarūpa is none other than stillness. And that particular stillness in Tantra, especially in Tantra, Bhairava sadhana perspective, Liṅga-Svarūpa is not merely like what we call it as a stone or a symbol. Especially in Tantric forms, in many of esoteric, especially the Tantra has been strongly been believed in few of the Tantra Svarūpa perspective. It is not only the attire, as the form space of Bhairava is being done the Aradhana. There is a particular stone, even the stone they keep it and they actually do a Prana Pratisthapana. Prana Pratisthapana plays very vital role. Maybe actually we'll talk about this in detail later, but let me just tell you, the stone or the symbol is what represents as Shiva Tattva or Bhairava Tattva there. It is a Shunya with Agni. It is like in a Nātha Sampradaya, it is also said that actually when a Spanda, what we call it as a vibration, dissolves into sthāṇu, and sthāṇu is nothing but stillness. Bhairava becomes Linga at that particular Swarupa. Here, what we need to understand is in Tantra, when we activate the Daivas, especially when you come to the in the Kaula Marga, normally the Devatas are not having the form of whatever we see it in esoterically with all the weapons. No, it is only the stones, or it is like a Liṅga-Svarūpa. They normally do a puja. Maybe you have seen a few of the latest movies or a few of the mythological events of stories of the events where actually the Daiva is being shown as a Liṅga-Svarūpa. Maybe you will be able to correlate and connect to it. Enter Deva is not in the form at that particular moment. It is actually in the form of the lingam. It is in the form of a cubicle where actually we can experience him in that particular what we call as sthāṇu, the stillness. The Spanda becomes sthāṇu. Sthāṇu is nothing but a very, very, very subtle stillness. Here, it may be like a Liṅga-Bhairava. Here we need to represent into a different aspect perspective. You maybe have heard about the Liṅga-Bhairavi, but Liṅga-Bhairava is a conscious, subtle sthāṇu of that particular spandana. Here, what we call it as actually Stambha Tattva. Here actually there are three particular aspects which actually Liṅga-Bhairava is trying to share to us. One is actually when Bhairava becomes the Liṅga-Svarūpa, he is trying to share the three aspects, the three main conscious connections as what we need to understand is. One is Stambha Tattva. Stambha Tattva is like a cosmic pillar. We call it as connecting to the Bhu. Bhuva, Swaha. Earth, mid-space and the heaven. Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. Even this particular Hume is actually none other than came out of the Spandana of the Bhairava himself. Stambha Tattva. This was what he was able to first tell us to us. Next Swarupa was about the Kalagni. Whatever the first essence he was able to erupt. That was actually able to tell. The second was connecting to that first is Kalastambha. What we call it as Kalastambha is like an axis of around which the time rotates. Yet remains in the same time zone. We all remains in the same time zone, but actually we are trying to rotate it. Even in the science perspective, we know about this. That is none other than the axis is what we call it as a gravitation is actually being holded or governed, supported, taken care, structured by none other than Kalastambha. He holds that particular energy. He holds that particular tattva. He holds that particular subtle stillness or of sthāṇu, what we call it as the subtle stillness. Chaitanya sthana, what we call it as Chaitanya sthana is none other than actually Chaitanya is maybe like a consciousness, a still center of a consciousness where everything can be experienced. That is the reason we as humans are being gifted to experience this Chaitanya, and that is the only few of them are being chosen, only who are actually in a Bhairava sadhana marga perspective. They'll be able to experience this. The Chaitanya sthana. Chaitanya sthana is somewhat like actually experiencing that conscious awareness as how Bhairava is able to hold it. We call him as only as a, no, he's a Kala Bhairava. He holds the time, and this world holds or being placed or it is holded by none other than particular that space, and that is holded by the Kalastambha. Here the axis around the time rotation yet remains in the beyond the time. That we need to experience and that we need to know. And in the Nātha Sampradaya, especially when it comes to the Guru Gorakhnatha, he was able to explain this very beautifully, like how exactly the Kala is everything. He being a Kala Tita, we need to know how beautifully we are blessed to even do his Aradhana. The Nātha tradition actually, this moment of the transformation in the meditation upon is called as an Liṅga Dhyana. Liṅga Dhyana is somewhat like experiencing that stillness. You may be knowing about like whenever you sit in front of the Linga, you may be experiencing that subtle softness, the subtle consciousness you will be able to experience, that Chaitanya you will be able to experience. That is why, because he is in the Swarupa of Kalastambha. He is a Stambha Tattva. He is in the particular Stambha Tattva. He is a Chaitanya sthana. He is in active in that particular Swarupa. and that is none other than Linga Dhyana. Let me just tell you, it is trying to share, or it is trying to disclose itself, that may the movement of the Bhairava within me rest as a still flame. It may be like, may my breath becomes that particular linga, may my heart and the temple, here he eternally resides. This is what actually everyone will be able to feel it when they sit in front of the Liṅga-Svarūpa. Maybe you may be calling in him in different names. It may be in the Devi Swarupa, Liṅga-Bhairava Swarupa, it may be Shiva Swarupa, or it may be like Veerabhadra Swarupa, or it may be even the Bhairava Swarupa himself, the first consciousness. Kalagni Tattva. Here what we need to understand very beautifully is the aspect of the Swarupas. Here we need to decode, we need to experience that. What basically, let me just put you like this, okay? Formless fire of the linga, whatever I told initially, it is none other than consciousness appearing of a stability. This is what it is trying to disclose us. Serving of the Brahmas, like chopping off the Brahma's head, is none other than cutting the fifth head, that I know. The only word what we need to understand or digest here is I know. The ego will only start when I comes into picture, and when the creator told I was being chopped off. If you are a Bhairava sadhaka, you need to know I should be replaced by him, his grace, his blessings, his anugraha. Then only he will be able to make sure that he'll be able to bestow you. And that bestow is not by like normal what we go and ask in front of other daiva. I need this. You decide what you want for this bhakta. This is where the surrenderness of connection you will get into. And when it comes to becoming the Liṅga-Svarūpa of the Bhairava, what we need to understand is transforming action into still witnessing. Spanda. The Spanda being is sthāṇa. And sthāṇa is nothing than stillness, the consciousness, Chaitanya Swarupa. He is becoming the Chaitanya Swarupa at that given point of time. Linga in a, what we call it as, Smasana, or particularly Shiva or Bhairava roaming around and going to the Mahasmashana and becoming as a Liṅga-Svarūpa. What that particular esoteric is trying to explain is awareness is the impersonance. It cannot be changed. Awareness, stillness is the ultimate truth where we all need to go. From the vibration to the sthāṇa, from the sound to the soundlessness state. And that is none other than Chaitanya. And that is what this, even if you see when we do any kind of a sound from any of the device, normally it will reverberate for a particular minute and it stops. And that particular stop of the movement is none other than what we call it as linga in that particular smashana swarupa. It is the awareness, it is a impersonance situation which he is trying to tell. Here what we need to understand is one more aspect is kala becoming sthāṇu, time dissolving into the timelessness state. This is what he was able to tell us. This is what he was able to time, that he is himself a time, and time exists within the time, and the time within the time is a timelessness. And these three stages we need to can know only when Bhairava, when Shiva became Bhairava, and Bhairava got settled in the Liṅga-Bhairava Svarūpa perspective. See, what we need to understand here is not from the esoteric like a story aspect perspective. The more than that, what we can experience him is how exactly he was able to go into that particular situation where Kala became this, what we call it as sthāṇu. The time dissolved into the timelessness state. He became the form of Linga. Bhairava taking the form of the Linga. When, see, maybe like when the sages of the Kashi asked this particular situation, how to worship the Liṅga-Bhairava, Bhairava himself replied, My guru tell that actually Bhairava himself was able to reveal this to the Saptarishis, that do not seek to offer me the flowers. Do not offer me your silence. You may be actually offering your whatever you have it, but offer me your conscious Chaitanya, the Chaitanya of the stillness, the silence of the purest silence. Offer me that. You do not wave to the lamp before me. You do not try to light up a lamp in front of me. See the flame within you. Within does not waver. That lamp should not be waved off. It should not be gone off. The lamp, do the jyoti, not outside, do the jyoti within inside, such that you can experience this. Thus was established a worship of Bhairava in the Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective. What we need to understand is Bhairava himself in the Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective, as a Liṅga-Bhairava, he is trying to disclose that a fire without a fuel, a form without the boundaries, or what we call it, the axis of this all existence, where the wandering return to the stillness, and the stillness burning with the light of awareness, is what the Liṅga-Bhairava is all about. Let me reiterate: the fire without the fuel, the form without the boundaries, the axis of all the existence, the fourth, the wandering returning to the stillness, and the stillness burning with the light of awareness. Chaitanya is none other than Liṅga-Bhairava perspective. And the what we call it as Bhairava in the Liṅga-Svarūpa, in the Tantra, every Puranic stories has a beautiful mirror to the inner alchemy. What we need to understand is not the one aspect or the one face of the story. We can analyze, assess this into a different aspect perspective. This is what actually is all about Tantra, knowing the different dimensions, knowing the different aspects. This is what actually Guru Bhairava is trying to share us. This is what actually he is trying to disclose to us, that he is not be holded in one particular form. He is time himself, not only in this world, any realm of this existence of the creation. You cannot hold him with a name and form. You can only experience him, and you can experience him in such a way when you take the Chaitanya Swarupa in your state. When you become a Liṅga-Svarūpa, you will be able to understand the sthāṇu, and that stillness, you will be able to experience it. And in Tantra, every Puranic stories is actually connecting to the dot of inner alchemy. And inner alchemy is where the stage at every sadhaka need to experience this. Every sadhaka need to go to that particular bindu, and that particular bindu should only be experienced when you actually are aware that you are not the vibration, you are not the spanda, you are the sthāṇu, you are the stillness, and that stillness can only be consumed when there is a spanda. Bhairava becomes the linga here. He was not merely taken form. You may be only seeing him from a form perspective, but I am trying to share here, he is a formless, he is a linga, he is a formless. He can only be experienced, and that experience can be felt once you become a sthāṇu. What we call it as particularly here is, he was still the spanda, the throb of the vibration, into the shunya dharma, whatever the dharma he was able to, and about to void the consciousness. That particular stage where he became a conscious, as took a form of linga, he became the void of unconsciousness. He became what we call it as initially as a question of infinity. It cannot be measured, it can only be felt. And this is what actually our Guru Bhairava is trying to share us, that you cannot experience the consciousness unless you become a shunya dharma. You go into that particular chaitanya where you become a shunyata. Here, Bhairava as a spanda. Let me actually divide this into two aspects. Bhairava as a spanda, Bhairava as a shunya dharma, or a what you call it as that particular Chaitanya Swarupa perspective. At the beginning, the sadhana, we as a sadhakas consciously see in the motion. We do all types of rituals. We actually make sure that actually we offer it. Even in Tantra or even in a Veda, Agamas, Puranas, every story is told in the same way. We are in the motion. We perform everything. That particular performing of the action is none other than Jnana Spanda. Whatever we get awareness at that particular situation when we do the sadhana, when we begin the sadhana, or when we are in the mid of the sadhana. It is about the jnana spanda, the flickering that what to know or what to experience will be inside the core of the sadhaka. Sadhaka will be knowing that I want to know something new, how I can act on that particular sadhana paddhati perspective, and how can I experience him. Irrespective of whatever the sadhana you are going to perform it, you will be able to be in this particular stage. And this particular stage is nothing but, we call it as beginning of the sadhana paddhati. Conscious is the motion at that given point of time. Hope you agree with me on this. And this movement, what we call it as Bhairava, is in the fiercest form, Kala Bhairava, Ugra Bhairava, or Kshetrapala at that given point of time. We being a Bhairava Sadhaka perspective, our energies, our thoughts, our emotion, our feelings, our situation will be there to know, act and experience him. These are the three stages actually we all will be. Like once we mature, he is in a time, the moment, and the roar of awareness, the destroyer of the tangent is being done. But Bhairava, like once the sadhaka becomes Bhairava, but sadhana becomes into the advanced stages, the Bhairava fire, intent of devouring, what we call it as, begins to eliminate. You start experiencing him. You start experiencing him in inner fire. Jataragni. Jwalagni. That Agni will be in a very Ugra-Svarūpa. What was Ugra at that given point of time when we started the sadhana becomes a Saumya. It becomes still. From Ugra to Saumya. Here, beginning his transformation into that particular stage is none other than sadhaka entering into the Liṅga-Svarūpa, the immovable flame. And that particular stage is none other than Bhairava himself taking over to you. The Liṅga-Svarūpa. Every sadhaka, every human, every devatas, every rishis have gone through this. From a Ugra to the Saumya. From the normal level of the movement, what we call it as, he taking the time moment and thinking about to know, act and as well as experience him. Everyone wants to do that. And once they come into the form of actually Saumya Tattva, when they actually reach that Saumya, automatically you are transformed. You will be able to experience Liṅga-Bhairava, and that is Liṅga-Svarūpa. It is the immovable flame, and that is the core meaning of what a sadhaka is going to get transformed from one particular Svarūpa to the other Svarūpa. It is not that actually we are going to be in the same stage. Your inner tattva, your inner guna is going to get changed. From Ugra to the Saumya, you are going to get changed. Every sadhakas goes through with this particular stages. And here Linga as a, what we call as sthāṇu, a still of axis of awareness is activated. Here, what we call it even in a Kaula. See, Kaula is all about experiencing Shiva Shakti. Here, it is it has been said, the Linga is axis of consciousness. What we call it as Chaitanya Sthamba, which I was able to tell you earlier. He is a Chaitanya Sthamba at that particular given point of time. It is purely narrated. Linga na silai, na kshama, na what we call it as like kinu jnana jyoti stambam. The Linga is not a stone. It's not a wood, not a clay. It is a pillar of radiant awareness. Here, every sadhaka, irrespective of whether it's a masculine or a feminine, Liṅga-Svarūpa is activated. That is the reason Ma has come into a Liṅga-Bhairava Svarūpa perspective to make people aware of us. And Liṅga-Bhairava is what we need to understand, that here the Linga is not of a stone. He is not nor the wood nor the clay. Here it is a pillar of radiant awareness. Every sadhaka will go through that. And once you become from Ugra to the Saumya, this is what the transformation of the life of every sadhaka is all about. So when the Bhairava takes the Linga form, it signifies us in a many different aspect perspective. It is somewhat like a session of the movement. It is in the mind, like a Nirodha. What we call it as Nirodha is like sessions of the movement, the stopping of that movement. What is like the mind has a lot of movement in that particular. I need to know, I need to act, I need to experience. This particular stage is called Nirodha. And the merge of that Kriya Shakti, that particular movement, into the Jnana Shakti, the awareness, is the transformation. And that particular stability of the consciousness is Aikya, what we call it as pointlessness. Aikya is nothing but going and merging into that particular stage. And in that particular state, Bhairava is a sthāṇu. This is what actually I am trying to explain from the state 1. Unmoving Shiva, who holds the movement within, in that particular stage, Bhairava became as sthāṇu. He became the Kalastambha. He became the still center of around all the time which can even revolve. Whichever the time you call as. This particular Mrityuloka, earth, whatever we call it as, heaven, Patala Loka, all 14 lokas is governed by the center which actually where Kala is resolved. And for all those 14 lokas, one Adipati is none other than Bhairava in the Liṅga-Svarūpa. He was able to experience this particular situation, becoming as Kalastambha. Here, what we need to understand from the inner symbolical perspective is, basically you are seeing from a Linga when it comes to as Bhairava becoming in a Linga form. No, it is a transformation from vibrations to the sthāṇu, from a Spandana to the sthāṇu, from a Ugra to the Saumya. Especially in a Nātha Sampradaya, here it is told like Liṅga-Bhairava arises within the Sahasrara Bindu, what we call it as, when it comes to even from the chakra energy perspective. It has been said, when the energy reaches from your Mooladhara to the Sahasrara, when the Bindu essence, what we call it as a Bindu, is none other than essence of the Kaula to the Akula, Kula to Akula, Shakti to Shiva, or Shiva to Shakti unites. That particular state, Sahasrara, when it meets us, that's where Liṅga-Bhairava is activated. He is not outside as a form. Transformation. Every one of us experience Liṅga-Bhairava when we are in the sadhana paddhati, irrespective of whichever the form you are going to do it. Because we are governed by the time. We are in the mid of the time. Not only in this particular realm, 14 lokas. Even if you are from the Mars, or even if you are from a Patala Loka, even if you are hearing this from a Naraka Loka also, you are also part of this particular governed by our Kalatita. Here what we need to understand is that particular Bindu which has been activated in the third eye, the essence of the Kula Akula, Shiva Shakti unites. The ascending current, what we call it as Urdhva Spanda, we call it as ascending current, is something like Urdhva Spanda. It is the movement of Kundalini Shakti arising from Mooladhara to Sahasrara. Urdhva Spandana is actually can be felt. It is actually in the Kaula Marga. These are the stages of awareness of the Spadana Paddhati which has been taken. It is like ascending, what we call it as ascending current, or descending stillness we call it as. Ugra Saumya. Spanda, what we call it as Spanda, or we may call it as like sthāṇu. Here Urdhva Spanda is actually taking in the form of Avarana Shunyata. Avarana Shunyata is a descending to the Bhairava, what we call it as Prakasha. Bhairava Prakasha is somewhat like consciousness. Bhairava Prakasha is Prakasha is going into merging into the Bhairava consciousness. Bhairava consciousness is none other than Bhairava Prakasha. It can only attain, or you can be able to experience or able to feel it only when Avarana Shunyata is being governed, or you will be able to experience that particular stage. What we call it as from the vibrations to the stillness, ascending current, Urdhva Spanda to avarana shunyata can only be experienced when we experience Bhairava Prakasha. And where they meet in Sahasrara, there manifest a inner linga. You will get a radiant energy. You'll be able to feel that energy. You'll be able to feel that light. What is that light? That light is none other than Linga. Bhairava in a Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective, shining like a blue flame, like unmoving, what we call it as infinity, alive. This can only happen when actually we as a sadhaka experience it. Thus, externally Bhairava Liṅga-Svarūpa cannot be seen. You worship with the mirror of the inner linga, what we call it as Liṅga-Svarūpa, not outside. Shivalinga, Bhairava Linga is within us, as we are being part of this, all those governed by his kshetra. We are governed by his governance. He holds all these things, 14 lokas, where the somewhat like where the sadhaka breathes, where the sadhaka is in awareness, where the sadhaka in the time dissolves into one still that point. Every one of us will experience, if not now, tomorrow you need to. If not this life, next life you need. You need to go from the vibration to that stillness stage. Every Atman need to go through to the Paramatman. Atma to Paramatma, this is a stage. And that particular Paramatma stage is none other than Liṅga-Bhairava. That Jyoti is none other than Liṅga-Bhairava. Here, what Bhairava stillness in the sadhana is trying to tell us is, we can think like this. As I told you initially, when he took the form of the Kalagni, the fire that burns the karma and the illusion, he was in the stage of, or we are in the stage of Ugra as well as Kala Bhairava Jnana Praspada. I want to know, I want to act, I want to experience. This is what the stage we will be. When Jnana-Agni is activated in one experience, the fire of illumination of awareness is activated, sthāṇu, Liṅga-Bhairava is activated in us. All of us will become witness the Liṅga-Bhairava. When the Bhairava assumes as a Liṅga-Svarūpa, he becomes the Jnana-Agni. From Kalagni to Jnana-Agni. From what we call it as vibration to the stillness. Here, repeatedly, let me just again tell you, Bhairava Prakasha. Bhairava Prakasha is Urja. Bhairava Prakasha is where all of us need to go. That particular third eye, Sahasrara, when it is being activated in Sahasrara, when from Agnya Chakra to the Sahasrara, when all these things meet, when actually Kula Akula we will be able to meet from the Sahasrara perspective, this particular state of consciousness is Bhairava Prakasha. From Kalagni to Jnana-Agni. Here, when Bhairava assumes that, like from a Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective, he becomes the Jnana. Here we are witnessing the steady inner flame that no wild of thought can disturb us at that given point of time. Here, it has been beautifully been articulated. Yatra no valite, yatra spandano nivratte. Like where Bhairava Liṅga-Jyota-Svarūpa perspective, what we need to understanding is, when a sound is dissolved, when a vibration chases, there arises a Liṅga-Bhairava. He is going to arrive and he must. And that stage, that is a process we need to experience it. And that state is Turiyatita Bhairava. Beyond the beyond. That particular stage of experiences, Turiyatita Bhairava. That particular awareness, prakasha of the Bhairava, that particular experiences where the awareness watches itself, self-luminous to the self-settling is being experienced. In the Nātha Sampradaya, Bhairava becomes the Guru Tattva. In the Nātha lineage, what we need to understand is, Bhairava is a Liṅga-Svarūpa because Guru Tattva himself is a Linga. Even Matsyendranath, our Guru Daiva, has explained this very beautifully. When Bhairava sits as a Linga in the Sahasrara, in the Bindu, he teaches without speech. He burns without flame. Silent transformation is called, what we call it as Avayoka Pada, or we call it as Avayoka Padesha. Avayoka Padesha is somewhat like teaching through the presence. No words can speak out it. Here, Bhairava in a Liṅga-Svarūpa is also a guru within himself, where everything awareness, getting the sadhaka from the vibration to the stillness, from beyond the sound to the form, he is trying to teach us. Even when it comes to the Kaula practice, Linga Dhyana is being done. Linga Dhyana has been done as a form of Bhairava. In the advanced Kaula practice, a Linga Dhyana has been done. Okay, sadhakas visualize the Bhairava in the flame arising form in the heart. Like without that particular movement, without any shadow, meditational, one particular mantra is being said. Maybe I will try to share the, rather than the mantra, I will try to share the, what exactly that mantra holds is, like, it is being said that I, being a sadhaka, I hold in my heart the Liṅga-Bhairava, the Bhairava as a Liṅga-Svarūpa, the infinity of that light, where beyond the vibration, void, yet I am ready to experience it. And when you get into that particular stage, this dhyana leads to Bhairava, what we call it as Samarasa. Samarasa is actually getting into oneness into the meditator. That, like, meditation and the meditator becomes one. It is dissolving into the one awareness. This particular Samarasa is none other than Bhairava Guna, Bhairava Samarasa. Bhairava Samarasa, that dhyana leads to that particular merge into that particular stage. This has actually been done in Kaula Tantra, Advanced Tantra. And here what we as a sadhakas need to know is why Bhairava took the form. You may be thinking, like, when he went to this Mahasmashana, initially as I told you, he sat as a Liṅga-Svarūpa and he was able to experience all those things. He was able to know his primary essence, Kalagni to Jnanagni, how he was able to shift it. All that 14 years of his experience when he went through, whatever he collected, how exactly he became a Guru Tattva himself. When Bhairava cuts the Brahmahatya, he does a Brahmahatya, Bhairava's fifth head, Ahankara was being chopped off. Knowing was being chopped off. He symbolizes served the crown of egoic knowledge. Egoic knowledge was being chopped off. But the act of killing, knowing itself, created a paradox in that particular guilt. So Bhairava wandered carrying that particular skull, Kapala, which Shiva himself was able to tell. He himself was able to tell to him. Finally, that stillness, he realized there is nothing to purify, for the door was illusion itself. Because it is not like Papa, Brahmahatya he did, so only he became Guru, Tattva. No. He was in that vibration stage to attain that stillness. He was able to take the transformation. That's where, as a sadhakas, we will be able to do a transformation once we do our sadhana very purely, very consistently, without seeing the name, time, frame, or even the what mandalas we are trying to do. Many times I repeatedly tell, keep on repeating your mandalas, irrespective of counting your days, counting your hours. Experience him in such a way, this particular vibration of things what we have it in our mind, knowing, acting and experiencing, will change into that what we call it as a stillness, Bhairava Shunyata. We will be able to reach there. Liṅga-Bhairava, not seeking, it is about not moving, it is not burning, it is being externally aware about him into the particular form of the particular situation, what we call it as the Turyatita Bhava, Turyatita stage, what we need to experience him. See, when Bhairava becomes the Linga, the dance of the existence actually formed into the still point. Here, not only from a story aspect I am trying to tell, as in sadhaka, how exactly the transformation will happen. All the motions, all creations, all delusions will revolve around this particular silence. You may have not experienced, or you may have experienced, or you may have read about the people who are talking about it, but this is the stage where every Atman need to go from Atma to Paramatma. When the sadhaka touches the stillness within, even from that particular moment, Bhairava stands revealed not as a duality, but a very essence of consciousness itself. He is able to tell us that this is what he is all about. As we approach to the like we are very close to the our Mahashtami, that is Kala Bhairava Jayanti, the most auspicious Guru Bhairava Jayanti, what we can call it as, the falling in next month. What we can do is, the unique opportunity what we have with sadhaka is, try to experience him in the Liṅga-Bhairava Svarūpa perspective. Try to meditate him in the Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective. Do not capture him in a attire. Do not capture him in a yantra. See him in a Atma Jnana. See him from a Liṅga-Svarūpa perspective. And even if you want to experience during this powerful window, if you want to experience, maybe we can do one thing. I can also share you the Prana Pratishtapana. Maybe you may be having your Linga at your home, Linga form. You may be calling him in whatever the name you may be lovingly calling him. It may be Liṅga-Bhairavi or Liṅga-Bhairava or even Shiva himself. You may be calling in a different name of him. But if you want to pour the prana into it, once you have any kind of a linga, it may be in a wood, mud, or what we call it as any kind of a metal, you need to actually pour life into it. And the pouring of that life acts a very, very important in the sadhaka's life, because we act as invoking the fire of consciousness, what we call it as prana to be poured into that. And to pour that prana, there is something called as in prana pratishtapana, and it is a process. And this process is not like one like every time we need to do. It is a one-time activity. Permanently within your space, he will be completely reverberating, he will be active. See, understanding prana pratishtapana is very, very essential. Activating Bhairava in a Liṅga-Svarūpa, as I told you, we need to do a prana pratishtapana. And prana pratishtapana means influencing life force into that particular form of linga. Once we have it, again, once you have a linga, there is no need of trishula, there is no need of anything is not only linga, because he is complete stillness, saumya, that particular stage. Even if you have a murti, prana pratishtapana can be done. Even if you have a linga, prana pratishtapana can be done. Even if you don't have both, you can get like Narmada Lingeshwara, or even if you require, you can text us. We can actually do a prana pratishtapana and send the lingam to you. And here, this is the next stage. Again, after the what we call it as Mahashtami, our Kala Bhairava Jayanti, we'll be able to talk about this. But you can, if you are interested to know as how the Bhairava Linga is a potent, consciously and ever awakened form can be activated at your home, from the moment onwards, we will be able to share this information into our Telegram group. You can join our Telegram group and you can experience, or you can actually activate the Prana Pratishtapana by yourself. You can do by yourself. It is a 5 days of simple process. The information will be shared to you. You can experience maybe before what we call it as like 1 week before the Kalashtami, that is Kala Bhairava Jayanti. This information will be added into our groups. You may go take the details and you will be able to do a Prana Pratishtapana on yourself. No need to actually hire someone to do a Prana Pratishtapana. You being a sadhaka, you being a Bhairava sadhaka, you will be able to do all these activities or steps. Simple step of actions which will be shared to you. And again, as I told you, if you require our support to be done, maybe not now, after the Kalashtami, like after the Kala Bhairava Jayanti, maybe you can raise a request to us. We will be able to tell you how exactly this can be done from our end, and we'll be able to ship the Bhairava Linga to you in a Narmada Lingeshwara Svarūpa perspective, such that actually you can start experiencing it. And it depends upon each sizes. And again, my proposal is experience him even in the form, experience him in the formless state. Once he comes to you in a formless state, you will be able to experience him in such a way. Every breath, every actions, every knowing, every experience, he will become you. He will become in such a state where actually Turyatita Bhairava, whatever, as I told you, Turyatita stage of knowing the Bhairava will be able to activate. What we will be able to know is from a Kalagni to the Jnanagni, automatically your awareness will be shifted. He himself as a, from what we call it as from the vibration to the stillness, sthāṇu Liṅga-Bhairava, you will be able to experience him. And that can be only done once you are ready. From a Ugra-Svarūpa to the Saumya, all this transformation will be able to happen. It must happen, as I told you. You need to go through. And that going through is none other than Spanda, the vibration. That vibration should go into the Shunya Tattva. Start experiencing, love him, know about him, read about him, listen about him such a way that none other than different aspect you will be able to experience him. The same stories, whichever has been shared in this channel, which is actually offered to his lotus feet. Here, nowhere we have told that actually please comment, subscribe, please like, please comment. Nowhere we are trying to share. If you have experienced, if you have known him, if you have want to experience him, share your experience by which people reading can experience themselves. And again, if you have yogyata, only you will be able to see this space. As I always said, Bhairava will not come into our life accidentally. He comes only to make us from a Jnanagni. He will be able to shift us awareness from wherever we are to the Jnanagni. He will be able to shift us to teach us that Aham Bhairavam, the ungraspable situation. He will be able to activate this. The Swarupa of the Liṅga-Bhairava, we need to experience it. And this is none other than, it is in your own experience, your own act, your own knowledge. You can reverberate. And this can only happen once you are ready to transform yourself to the next stages. As I told you, 3 stages everyone of need to go through. Bhairava himself was able to tell Stamba Tattva, Kala Stamba, and Chaitanya Sthāṇa. These 3 stages every sadhakas will go through. Maybe you go through on all these stages, experience him, know about the Bhairava in a Liṅga-Svarūpa, Liṅga-Bhairava himself. Experience him in such a way, he become awareness within you. He became a doorway to you. There is nothing pure or a doorway illusion which creates him or know him, make you a wander like what he did for that 14 years. You are just juggling between one sadhana to other sadhana, one puja paddhati to. Bhairava is the ultimate. Bhairava is who is going to make you experience all and everything around in this particular cosmos, irrespective of whatever the sadhana we perform. Maybe his grace be on with you. Om Bhairavaya Namah. Om Hingulambikaya Namah. Om Kalakalaya Vidmahe Kalahatitaya Dhimahi Tanna Kala Bhairava Prachodayat. Om Hingule Paramahingule Amritarupini Tanushakti Manashiva Shringulaya Namah. Namaskaram.